we have footage from PMU affiliated Sabrine channel, which published footage showing the American KC-135 refueling aircraft crashing down into pieces after it was shot down by Iraqi resistance group. There was a mass evacuation of tankers from Prince Sultan several days ago. This incident may have prompted it, and we did receive confirmation that the attack on the tankers, which resulted in 5 tankers being damaged and destroyed, did take place several days ago. The Iranians have already achieved a generational strategic objective by causing the withdrawal of the vast majority of U.S. forces based on the Persian Gulf to bases deep in the Middle East or even the Mediterranean, like in Turkey and in Jordan. Couldn't have said it better myself. We need to be very clear about something. The U.S. has a relatively small military. I mean, we have a lot of reservists, we have the National Guard, but as far as active duty, it's on the smaller side, especially when you compare it to nations like China, when you compare it to, the volunteerism that we see in the Russian military, the size of the Russian military, and also when you compare it to North Korea. Oddly enough, North Korea has one of the largest standing armies in the world. The power of the U.S. military, of course, does not come from some incredibly gifted, superhuman standing army. No, the strength of the U.S. military comes from the power of the U.S. dollar. It comes most notably from our blue water navy, as they call it. They act like we are the only country on the face of the earth with a big navy. Meanwhile, China has 200 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States today. And really, I mean, the whole idea of amphibious landings, of U.S. aircraft carriers being like the end-all be-all to military strength, I mean, you would have had to have seriously misunderstood the lessons that we have learned from the Ukraine war to still believe these things today. But this is what the U.S. believes, and this is actually still what a lot of the world fears, is the power of, the blue water navy, the power of the U.S. dollar, the power of U.S. special operations, psyops, regime change efforts, and the ability for the U.S. to buy off politicians, military officials, but also, and probably even more importantly than all of that, when you're looking at just the raw military potential of the United States, it would be the U.S. Air Force. All right. They don't make Top Gun movies just for the fun of it. No, that is about intimidating our enemies. And the U.S. Air Force has had a hellish week, and it's only getting worse. All right, so let's take a look at what has gone on with the U.S. Air Force. Of course, I must remind you that we are currently sending 5,000 U.S. Marines to the region. Already, we have confirmed reports of 13 U.S. soldiers who have died, 200 U.S. soldiers injured, and 10 U.S. soldiers who are critically injured. And that's just in the opening 13 days of the conflict from the publicly disclosed numbers. Obviously, any U.S. soldiers on military contracting, any military contractors do not have to have their deaths reported. CIA deaths do not have to be reported. Department of Defense officials do not have to be reported, as far as I know. I could be wrong about that. And it's only 13 days in. And we haven't even deployed like ground troops anywhere. They do this in Karg Island. The numbers are going to go through the roof, okay? But let's go back to the U.S. Air Force, right? The beacon of U.S. military strength. Well, it's been a bad 13 days or so. Of course, we have all seen the story of the 3 U.S. fighter jets, which were downed over the Iraqi-Kuwait border. There's really been no clarification as to how 3 U.S. aircraft carriers, 3 U.S. fighter jets, F-15s, were downed in a matter of seconds on the Iraqi-Kuwait border. But I'll just tell you, I'm not believing the official stories, because the official stories consistently claim that Iran had nothing to do with the downing of these U.S. jets or U.S. KC-135 tankers or whatever it may be. That is what we continue to see, but I'm just not believing it. The United States said that they had 3 U.S. fighter jets down over the Iraqi-Kuwait border in an act of friendly fire. Now, I don't know if I would like put my life on the line saying that a Kuwaiti Arab air defenses are the best in the world, but three fighter jets down in a few seconds. I don't know if I believe that. I really don't know if I believe that. But that's not all. We have a lot more that has taken place over the past 24 hours and several days. When I was gone, there was like one or two other fighter jets were down. I think one U.S. fighter jet and one Emirati jet were also down, all of which I think have been F-15s thus far. But yesterday we saw the news that a KC-135 air refueling jet had crashed in western Iraq. But no. This was not as a result of Iranian air defenses. It says it bombed an Iranian boat that came too close to the USS Abraham Lincoln and a fire broke out. Of course, this couldn't have been the Iranians. The Iranians are a bunch of knuckle-dragging troglodytes living in caves. Couldn't have been the Iranians, right? The U.S. says KC-135 crashed in Iraq, but not as a result of fire. It says it bombed an Iranian boat that came too close to the USS Abraham Lincoln, and a fire broke out inside the USS Gerald Ford laundry room. Soldiers have been dying from medical episodes. Don't worry, accidents happen in war. Victory is just over the horizon. I added plus 3 fighter jets downed in 60 seconds as a result of friendly fire. Yeah, these stories are not adding up, and the Iranians are picking up on the comedy of the situation, just pure comedy, okay? This is the Iranian spokesperson mocking the United States military, saying, and now with the same justification, the destruction of its refueling plane is being labeled as a technical defect. The number of technical defects, mild brain injuries, and internal clashes you have had has increased more than ever before at any point of the region, especially in your own settlement areas, industrial zones, and underground shelters. You will be buried under fire and rubble. That's what he has to say here. Victory comes only from God, the Almighty. Okay, so, I'm not saying that. That's the Iranian guy saying that about, the rubble, being buried under the rubble. I'm not saying that. I want to be very clear for the YouTube community guidelines team. Jackson's not saying that, okay? Now, I just want to be very clear. Hear me now, quote me later. I'm going to predict tomorrow's news for all of you. I have special, I can read the palms of General Dan Cain, Raising Cane's. I have special powers. I predict that tomorrow, March 15th of 2026, I predict that 5 U.S. fighter jets will crash in a non-hostile incident over western Iraq after the desert sun's glare blinded several pilots. I also predict that 3 U.S. soldiers will have died of dysentery at the exact nanosecond an Iranian MRBM, medium-range ballistic missile, impacts their airbase at Mach 5 speed. I also predict that 10 U.S. soldiers will go for a mid-morning swim off the side of the USS Gerald R. Ford, and they will be swallowed whole by an unidentified sea creature. And lastly, I predict that 2 CIA personnel stationed in a Dubai high-rise will have lost their battle with HIV after an OnlyFans porta-potty party, the exact moment a Shahed 139 impacts their penthouse. Don't tell me how I know this. But I do in fact believe that this is what we are going to see over the next 24 hours. We will wait and see. What we do know for a fact is that a KC-135 refueling aircraft went down over western Iraq yesterday. A second KC-135 aircraft, the one pictured below in this image, landed safely at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. Kind of. It kind of landed safely because the tail of the KC-135 suffered a little bit of damage. You can see here in the photo, it is missing the tip of the tail. Iraqi resistance claimed they downed the plane with a P-358 surface air missile. There were 6 crew members on the plane that crashed, and their condition is unknown. As of the time that I wrote this post, it's now been confirmed by CENTCOM that all crew members did die. And our friends in Iraq at NIA for Iraq have actually identified, I think, 2 of the crew members on board that KC-135 that went down in the Anbar Desert. U.S. soldiers on Chinooks were looking for the downed plane, assisted by SAS forces. And we have footage from PMU-affiliated Sabrine channel, which published footage showing the American KC-135 refueling aircraft crashing down into pieces after it was shot down by Iraqi resistance groups. So this was not a crash landing. The plane was fully intact before, it hit the ground. We have footage of it actually falling to the ground in pieces, and these planes are absolutely massive. We had more scenes emerging in the middle of the night from the site of the downed KC-135. The Iraqi militia groups were putting out hefty awards for people providing any sort of intelligence on the downed plane. Someone said play the clip. You can't really see much. I mean, it's like from afar in the middle of the desert. I don't really know what you want to see. It's from afar in the middle of the desert. You're just seeing like balls of KC-135 flying down to the desert in the middle of the night. Okay, I played the clip for you. So this right here is what actually took down the KC-135. It is an Iranian loitering SAM missile 358. And this was used by Iranian militia groups in all likelihood. The interesting fact about this 358 is that the missile was named after the flight number of the CIA Middle East Station Chief, Michael D'Andrea, otherwise known as Ayatollah Mike, who was assassinated over Afghanistan back in 2020 in clandestine revenge for the killing of Qasem Soleimani. This was the plane that was carrying D'Andrea, who was like known. Apparently, this guy, he was like the main guy responsible for a bunch of assassinations in the Middle East against the axes of resistance, the CIA station chief. And I think he became he converted to be a Muslim to marry his wife. And he was assassinated. The plane number that he was assassinated on was 358. And they decided to name this loitering SAM missile after the plane that was carrying the station chief that they assassinated. I just want you all to understand that when CENTCOM says that an accident caused the death of 6 crew members in Western Iraq on the KC-135, this is the accident right here. This is the accident. The accident. I guess they think that the SAM missile 358 is called accident. That is what they're referring to. But we also received this news over the past 24 hours later on in the night. 5 refueling aircraft belonging to the U.S. Air Force were damaged and destroyed at the Prince Sultan base in Saudi Arabia. Now, frankly, I was a little bit surprised that the U.S. was keeping so many of these KC-135s in Saudi Arabia. I figured that they had moved most of them to Jordan. We know in the opening hours of the war, we had most of our U.S. Air Force assets at the Mulfaq Air Base in Jordan because it was further out of range of Iranian missiles. But apparently we still had a lot of these KC-135s at the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Now, the reason for that is because each and every night, as KC-135s are, doing like back-to-back refueling operations in the Middle East, they're doing it over, I'll show you right now what it looked like last night. They're doing it over the border of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. So they take off from the Prince Sultan Air Base, and clearly they know that they're not really too safe to fly inside of Iraq. Clearly, they know that Saudi Arabia doesn't want them operating on their soil. So they're flying in this line above the Iraqi, directly across the Iraqi-Saudi border. And Iraq does have the capabilities to take these things down, as we have now learned. But also, Iran has the capability to target the Prince Sultan Air Base, as we've seen every single day since the start of this conflict. But they need to use this airspace because what the U.S. is trying to do, as we discussed prior to the war beginning, You remember the last stream I did prior to the start of Operation Epstein's Fury, I said, what is the U.S. going to try to do? The U.S. is going to try to take out Iran's missile launching systems. Because at a certain point, it doesn't matter how many missiles you have. What matters is how many launchers you have. Launchers are much easier to target than these underground missile facilities, cities, and they have a far fewer launchers than, of course, missiles by leaps and bounds. So the U.S. wants to take out the launchers. The problem with taking out launchers is they need to have fighter jets in the sky at all hours in case Iran fires off a missile, so they can go in and try to locate it as quickly as possible and take it out before it gets placed into some deep underground bunker once more or moved across the desert once again. That is why they have so many air refueling tankers above the region at all hours of the day. That is the only reason why. They are trying to secure the location of the Iranian launchers, and the fighter jets cannot fly 24/7, which is why they need these refueling tankers, making them a very easy to target for the Iraqi militia groups as they are flying in a direct line back and forth on the Iraqi-Saudi border. So 5 refueling aircraft belonging to the U.S. Air Force were damaged and destroyed in Saudi Arabia. Wall Street Journal has confirmed this. Israeli Channel 14 has also confirmed this. And Trump also confirmed it. He's like, well, they weren't all destroyed. Some were just damaged, but they were pretty much fine. Alex Stein tweeted this out. The entire flight crew died on the KC-135, but I guess it's worth it to stop a nuclear program that Iran hasn't developed yet, and Trump claimed he already took out. Pretty much. Now, the news of the 5 U.S. KC-135s being struck at Prince Sultan Air Base actually occurred a few days ago, but it was just revealed to the public. Americanists tweeted out, been anticipating this news for a while. The U.S. Air Force has continued to operate out of Prince Sultan while it's been under daily attack, but there was a mass evacuation of tankers from Prince Sultan several days ago. This incident may have prompted it, and we did receive confirmation that the attack on the tankers, which resulted in 5 tankers being damaged and destroyed, did take place several days ago. So we have 5 tankers destroyed, 1 which landed at Ben Gurion, damaged, and we have 1 which crashed over Western Iraq. So 7 tankers down, about 4 to 5 U.S. fighter jets which have been down. How strong is the U.S. Air Force looking, you guys? Tell me. Israeli and Western estimates also, by the way, say the number of Iranian missile launchers has remained largely unchanged despite intense strikes. So despite the fact that we've lost or had 7 of these KC-135s damaged or destroyed, 1 which went down and 6 crew members died, despite the fact that we've had 3 to 5 U.S. fighter jets gone down, we have pretty much wiped out a grand total of almost 0 Iranian missile launchers, because Iran has deployed a strategy of deploying small mobile targets, small mobile launchers, creating big problems for the United States. So they have all these small launchers that they can quickly pick up, pack up, and move away after they launch a missile. And in some cases, these things are coming straight out of the ground. It looks like, it looks like that video, that meme video of what was that South Korean Whoopum Gangnam style guy? He pops out of the ground and he jumps up and the fans go crazy because he elevates out of the bottom of the stage. They're doing that sort of stuff with these Iranian missile launchers. Some of them are obviously on mobile trucks, you name it, whatever it is. Some of the smaller missiles. The Iranians have already achieved a generational strategic objective by causing the withdrawal of the vast majority of U.S. forces based on the Persian Gulf to bases deep in the Middle East or even the Mediterranean, like in Turkey and in Jordan. Couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, Iran is on a generational run right now, and they do not appear to be stopping anytime soon. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.